Greetings and welcome to our 64th episode of Modern Mining Showcases, and as always, I'm your host, Dark Elf Guy. And today we have another 13 Solstheim themed mod to your viewing pleasure. And yes, that's right, we're, doing our yearly Solstheim themed episode today. And for those of you who have been keeping track, we've done a Solstheim themed episode during the summer months. Almost every year now, I think, and it's sort of becoming a tradition, I suppose. And that means we have wintry landscapes, some new Nordic islands, and much more awaiting you in today's episode. But first, you'll find download links and conflict information, and mod cleaning warnings down in the video description below. So let's go ahead and get started with our popular mod of the week, which this week is Vert's ground cover by Vert. And alright, so technically speaking, this isn't strictly a Solstheim themed mod. And also this mod probably doesn't require much of an introduction, since it's probably one of the most popular mods made from Morrowind at the moment. And that said, we haven't actually showcased it yet, so better late than never, I suppose. And anyway, since this is a pretty massive mod that also just happens to cover Solstheim, we're actually going to be, spending the majority of the showcase here checking out the ground covers along different regions of Morrowind, such as the Bitter Coast region, the Ascadian Isles, West Gash, and, so on and so forth. Oh, we started out in Cedar, since of course this is the first thing you'll see if you start a new game with Vert's ground cover, and probably most of you are already playing with this mod installed anyway. But just ignoring that for a second, I have to say it really does change the graphical, feel of the game, making each environment feel a bit more, well, richer, dynamic, and just more alive in general. Now, I must confess that we've hesitated to showcase this mod in the past because the ground cover here does run into a lot of mod conflicts, really basically anything that modifies the landscape or terrain height will cause a conflict, most notably Morrowind Rebirth. There is a way to generate new grass though, to make compatibility patches, but having said that, it might be a bit beyond the typical skill level of your normal Morrowind player. Still, you'll find a link to a guide for, making compatibility patches if you're interested in adding this to your game down in the video description below. But regardless of mod conflicts, this is, simply a beautiful and breathtaking mod. Such a simple thing as animated grass, ferns, flowers, and weeds just adds so much to the gameplay experience and makes Morrowind feel like a whole new and beautiful world to explore. Now, I'm actually using one of my random graphics mod installs for this video showcase here. As you guys know, I have about 20 to 30 different Morrowind installs on my computer, so you might notice some odd textures here and there, since I throw all the texture places we showcase into basically the same install location, making for some odd, sort of varieties of ground and building textures. But anyway, we're going to move on to Solstheim here, since of course, that's the theme of this episode. And this mod does come with ground cover for Solstheim, and indeed there's some customization available in this download package, with the ground cover separated into 3 or 4 .esps, so you can choose which ones you want to activate if you're worried about, potential mod conflicts. Needless to say, I don't think this will work with the Solstheim Tomb of the Snowprince overhaul. And again, like most of our past Solstheim episodes, pretty much every mod on this list is going to conflict with Tomb of the Snowprince, with a few, perhaps rare exceptions. But anyway, the grass of Solstheim is naturally less colourful than some of the landscapes back on Morrowind, with the deep greens of the Bitter Coast and the fields of flowers in the Ascadian Isles and West Gash. But regardless, you'll still find a mix of golds and pinks towards the southern end of the island. And needless to say, it really goes well with the thick forest of Solstheim. The grass cover helps add another layer of growth to make the scenic woodlands feel more, well, realistic, I suppose. And I have to say, you could probably spend hours upon hours just flying through or walking around these environments with Vert's ground cover enabled, and absolutely love every minute of it, just due to the sheer beauty it adds to the landscape. I do really love the effect of this simple addition to the game world, but sadly I'll never really get a chance to use this mod myself, since I'm, almost always too busy to actually stop and play the game. But if you're looking for something to add to your Morrowind experience, to make the game feel that much, better, and somehow haven't installed this already, then I do highly recommend checking it out for yourself. For our house mod of the week this week, we have a Woodland House by Shrewsbury, and this mod adds a lovely and cozy log cabin style cottage to the shores of Solstheim, just down the coast from the Imperial outposts of Fort Frostmoth. And this is of course a rather nice and rustic place to call home, with a unique appearance that manages to blend in rather well with the architecture and the landscape of Solstheim, including 2 decks that provide views that look out into the sea, and even a little bit of furniture so you can, sit and admire the view. And going inside, you'll find a rather nicely decorated abode, as you should expect from a veteran martyr like Chesri, with a cozy and atmospheric kitchen including a fireplace to prepare meals at, as well as a dining room right off the side here with a few chairs should you have company over, and of course there's naturally a lounge with a couple of couches which look rather comfy if I do say so myself, and you also notice there's a ring for teleporting yourself back home on the table here, a nice convenience feature to have. And on the whole, this woodland villa is quite nicely finished and detailed, with a number of decorations, but you know, with space to add your own touch as well. And real quick, we're going to be taking a look at the master bedroom here, which is rather sizable, including a small lounge by the fireplace, a number of drawers for storing your clothing in, a bed for you to sleep in naturally, and even a kettle by the bed here for brewing some tea. Now downstairs in the basement, you'll find a bit of a lobby with a small garden, as well as an alchemical lab over here on the side with a set of alchemical equipment, as well as bookshelves to place potions and whatever else you want to display, and a few built-in wall cabinets for ingredient storage. There's also a display and storage hall down here with a number of display cases, and dozens of chests to store your extra loot into. And while this house is, I would say, probably about mid-sized, it does come with enough storage to handle pretty much your every storage need. And finally, you'll also find quick transportation to a number of cities through the doors in this last room here, which is a rather nice convenience feature. This week's gameplay mod of the week is Blood Moon Armor Pack by the Symphony team, and primarily Hedgehog 12. And yes, I know, this isn't exactly a gameplay mod, but our original gameplay mod for this time slot didn't quite work out. And, well, this episode has been in production for a long time, so we're just going to, you know, roll with it. And anyway, this is an expansion to Hedgehog 12's big graphical overhaul mod, the Symphony, to cover some of the items and in particular armor sets found on Solstheim. While this is an expansion for the Symphony, it does also work as a standalone mod, so you can use it by itself if you want to, and it does make a few gameplay related changes as well. Now you might find various traders or guards roaming around the wilderness, replacing the Reavers for the most part, and they sometimes have a few things for sale, and just taking a look at some of the armor replaces in particular here. As always, Hedgehog 12 has a particularly unique style to the way he designs armors, and you can see some of the wolf and bear style armors being worn around the Meadhall and Thirsk here. And one of the things that strikes me the most about these armor sets is that they really do have a sort of Morrowind style about them, which is to say they're just a bit outlandish and strange looking, particularly the helms, which reminds me more of the Netch and Kyton helms of Morrowind than, you know, anything that's Skyrim based. It's really a curious mixture, combining the more Western and Nordic styles of fur-based armors with some of the more alien elements of Morrowind's armor designs, but I think it works fairly well here. It also covers the Nordic mail armor set worn by the guards in Scale Village, so there's at least 3 armor sets that are replaced by this package, and of course they won't appeal to everyone, but they're still fairly nice looking all the same. And in addition, this mod also replaces the ingredients, drinks, and books of Solstheim, and you can see some of the ingredients here, notably a few of them are animated, and again they all have that sort of Symphony style about them. If you're already using the Symphony, you might want to consider giving this mod a try as well. Now next up we have our Town Hall of the Week, and this time around we have Melrin Point by Carrot Ferret. And now yes, we have actually showcased this mod before. It was one of the winning entries in the 2016 Morrowind's May Modathon month, but that was over a year ago, and it's never been, you know, featured in our core series of Morrowind modding showcases, hence why we're looking at it today. And essentially what this mod does is it adds a small Nordic settlement just to the east of Fort Frostmoth, along a southern tip of the island, and it isn't a very large village. There's about 4 or 5 buildings and a lighthouse, and all the residents are either Nord or Dunmer. Turns out the original town was settled by 2 families, the Nordic Hummels and the Dunmeri Rins, hence the name of this fair village. And in any event, this is a rather cozy town in the southern woodlands of Solstheim, though obviously it will conflict with the Tomb of the Snow Prince overhaul. And now we're going to check out a few of the interiors here, which are all rather cozy and nice looking, with a fair bit of furnishings and detailing. Most of the homes here are the same style of Nordic homes as found in Morrowind's villages like Dagenfell or Cedar. And for the most part, the NPCs here have a few new dialogue topics and new things to say. There's also a small tavern here, which doesn't have much in the way of, you know, seating and the like, but it's a rather atmospheric little den where the locals and the occasional off-duty member of the Imperial Legion can be found drinking a brew, or getting cozy by the fireplace. And of course there's a few services here, with the barkeep offering food and drink for sale. There's also a quest associated with this small village, including a missing brother who's disappeared near town. And there's also a bit of background information about the family here. Seems there's some strange sights that have been seen in the forest north of the town, and you'll have to investigate to find the fellow's missing brother. and this will lead you to, oddly enough, a Duma ruin, the only one on the island, or at least so it seems, with one of those traditional Duma towers poking out amongst the trees, and a trapdoor leading down into a Duma ruin for you to explore. And really, as much as this mod might be a town mod, it's also very much a dungeon mod, and probably a majority of the content here is a new string of Duma dungeons beneath the grass and dirt of Solstheim that you'll get to fight through. Though obviously at first the dungeon doesn't really have much in the way of hostile opponents for you to face. The upper levels have been taken over by a wizard who's been studying the Duma, and he's converted these upper levels into his living space. And he also has a bit of information regarding the quests that you're going on. And we're going to take a quick look at some of the dungeon interiors here. This is a large set of Duma ruins, so we'll only be looking at a few of the starting areas, but there's at least a few hours of content here in total, and really this is a fairly sizable mod, with a lot of fun dungeon delving encounters, and of course a quest to go on. There's a reason why this mod did fairly well in the 2016 Modathon Month competition, and of course you should check it out for yourself if you haven't already. For our items mod of the week this week, we have Arctic Steel by Midget Alien, and this mod adds a new and unique armor set for the gods of Ravenrock, so they're no longer wearing the plain and regular old armor from Morrowind. They now have a distinct look, including a number of different helms, with one for the god captain, and a couple of different varieties for the others. And taking a closer look at the armor here, it's kind of a mix between steel armor and fur armor, which makes sense. If you're going to be out patrolling in a cold climate like Solstheim, you're going to want some fur to keep you warm, and in any event, it's a bit of a white-coloured armor with a visually coherent colour scheme, and otherwise has a fairly nice design. If a bit on the dated side, you'll notice the texture resolution here isn't particularly great, but if you just want some more armor sets, including a number of unique helms, added to the game that also provides the gods of Ravenrock with a unique appearance, you might want to consider giving this mod a try. This week's quest mod of the week is none other than Blackthorn Barrow by Corsair83, and this is without question the newest mod in our lineup today, coming out fairly recently. And to really kind of save this episode, I've been trying to find a good Solstheim themed quest mod to fill this slot for months now, and Corsair's mod here has really saved me, and I just have to say right away that it's just, you know, a really fantastic mod on top of it all. But I suppose I'm getting just a little carried away here, so basically what this mod does is add a new Nordic barrow to the northern part of Solstheim. And for the record, this mod is compatible with the Tomb of the Snow Prince overhaul, in case you were wondering about that. And just heading inside, you'll find a dark and half-submerged Nordic barrow that curiously has some signs of recent activity, with a number of documents and maps apparently left behind by some expedition that had arrived before you to explore these ruins. This will launch you on a quest to discover what they were after, a dragon mask, like those found in Skyrim, reportedly somewhere in this tomb, and in any event, things quickly get pretty violent. Apparently a rogue group of mercenaries has gone somewhat berserk, and are quite frankly willing to kill anyone that gets in their way. This dungeon is really meant for higher level characters. I believe the author has it listed for characters level 30 and over, and it's absolutely packed with near non-stop action from start to finish. So you'll be swinging a lot of blades, firing a lot of arrows, or slinging a lot of spells all the way through. And really, I have to say the dungeon design here is top-notch, with some great detailing and atmospheric elements. I absolutely love what Corsair has created here, and if this mod is any indication, I expect to see some more great mods from him in the future. And this is, without question, an amazing first quest and dungeon mod, and I'd love to see some more. But anyway, we're just going to show off a bit more of the dungeon here, which kind of snakes through a variety of different environments, going from Nordic burial hallways to icy caverns and chambers. And as great as the dungeon design is here, you shouldn't neglect the storytelling, because there's some excellent writing included here. And really, this is just a fun and really engaging quest mod, and I'd highly recommend that you check it out for yourself. And next up, we have our landmass mod of the week, and this week we have Van Heim, or Van Heim, by Leica On. And I don't really know which of those pronunciations is correct. If, you know, either of them are, there's a pretty good chance I screwed up both of those pronunciations. And regardless, you guys know me, I have a terrible history of pronouncing names correctly, so probably whichever one I end up using in this video is the wrong one. And anyway, this is quite frankly a massive and, you know, really quite interesting looking landmass mod. And we're only going to be doing a quick tour of these islands here. Van Heim consists of a number of spread out wintry islands to the east and north of Solstheim, located just to the north of the popular Alvin Drace mod by Centurion. And yes, you can actually play both of them together They're compatible right out of the box, and the same goes for Town Rebuilt, Morrowind Rebirth, The White Wolf of Loken Mountain, and even the Solstheim Overhaul, Tomb of the Snow Prince. So mod conflicts aren't, going to be a particular concern here. It should be compatible with just about everything. And as for the islands themselves, they're home to a number of towns, settlements, ruins, dungeons, and massive forests, spread out across about 4 or 5 main islands, with about a dozen smaller islands surrounding the main group. There's several hours of content here, just in terms of exploration and dungeon fighting, but of course there's also quests for you to do as well, and they range to include everything from simple fetch quests to potential murder investigations, though keep in mind that English is not the author's first language, so the writing here may be a little rough in places. But anyway, we're going to show off a fair bit of these new islands, which contain 2 main settlements, as well as some smaller villages, and the largest of these towns, which is the one we're going to be taking a look at here actually, is about 30 buildings or so, making it a rather sizable city that's comparable to other mid-sized cities back on Vvardenfell, such as, Balmora, or Aldrun, or Sadrith Mora, and so on and so forth. For the most part though, you'll be spending most of your time on Vanheim out in the cold and frigid wilderness, which is not for the faint of heart, as the fights you'll encounter out here are incredibly dangerous, and the author actually recommends that you be around level 40 or so before you start the new content here. This is particularly important to know before you go around doing any and all the quests and dungeons included here, as lower level characters will be quickly sorted by the tough and aggressive wildlife of Vanheim. But we'll be taking a look at some of these dungeons here more in a minute, but for now we're going to just continue our scenic tour of the islands, and you might notice that the forests of Vanheim are quite well thick, even more so than in Solstheim. Most of the islands are at least partially covered in the towering evergreen trees first introduced in the Blood Moon expansion pack, and they often come right up to the borders of the snowy paths that you'll most likely be following when you first visit these fair islands, unless you're like me and just, levitate over everything all the time. But either way, this makes for some cool environmental designs that's, fun to explore, as numerous locations are hidden in the thick forest here. There's also a number of your typical Morrowind-style dungeons located around the islands here, such as Daedric and Duma Ruins, in addition to your Solstheim-style ice caverns and Nordic barrows and, things of that nature, including this rather large set of partially submerged Daedric ruins right off the coast here. And indeed, I believe you'll find a few dungeons located off the main islands and, out in the water a bit, so it never hurts to explore the surrounding sea just, a little bit in case you might be missing something. And anyway, not to rush things, but as always, I want to keep this showcase on the, sort of shorter side, so we'll be quickly taking a look at a few other areas of Vanheim, but rest assured, we'll be skipping over a lot, and you'll just have to, play this one for yourself if you want to discover all the new locations that it contains. And now real quick, we're going to be taking a look at just one more town here, a small village and Nordic-style dwellings along the coast, and, overall, Vanheim is a rather scenic place. The landscaping and detailing here is really quite good as far as, landmass mods go. Over the years, we've rejected a lot of Solstheim-style landmass mods in the past due to poor landscaping and a variety of other issues that vary from one extreme or another, and, we do reject a lot of mods on this channel, but even, for a typical rejection rate, Solstheim-style landmass mods tend to get rejected at a far greater rate than almost any other category. So if you're looking for a few more snowy islands to explore that are, of pretty good quality, I would definitely, highly recommend giving Vanheim a try. And now, before we move on, we're going to take a look at just a couple of interiors here. And overall, there's nothing overly unique about these buildings. They're just, your fairly typical Nordic and Raven Rock style structures. And really, the interior design here does leave, something to be desired. It's, average, but not terrible. And that's not to say that these interiors are terrible or anything, I'd just say they're about average in terms of quality overall. There's perhaps a few copy and pasted interiors here and there as well, but the NPCs do have some unique dialogue with information about these new islands, as well as the towns here, and of course again there's a number of quests to go on, included on Vanheim, with plenty of content for you to see and do. And like I mentioned before, we are going to just take a quick look at some of the dungeons here, and there's really truly a large variety of dungeons on Vanheim. I think there's perhaps maybe about half a dozen or so different types, including Duma Ruins, Daedric Shrines, Dunmer Strongholds actually, which is kind of surprising, some Nordic Barrows, Ice Caverns, and so on and so forth. The dungeons here are of, fairly decent quality and, provide a ton of stuff for you to do. And I think there's about a dozen or 24 dungeons on the island, which, gives you a fair bit of variety and, lots of content to do. And if you're just looking for a lot more, scenic and fun dungeon delving content to do, Valheim is definitely a nice mod to check out. For our NPC mod of the week this week, we have Antares Creatures Trent by Archimaestro Antares. And now this is one of several creature mods that Archimaestro has released over the years. And for those who just want all of his creature mods in one simple, easy, and simple to download package, I'd recommend checking out Melkor's Antares Creatures Integrated, which basically combines everything into a simple and easy to install package. But we're just going to be looking at the Trent or Tree Ints today. And these are a sort of a new unique encounter that you'll come across on the island of Solstheim. Basically 5 of these new tree int creatures have been placed around the forest of southern Solstheim, sometimes wandering around the woodlands here, or other times rooted to the ground and minding their own business. You can choose to attack them, of course, and they do drop a bit of hot wood, but they're not really added to any level list, so there's only about the 5 of them to kill. And much like all of Archimaestro's creature mods, this one is free to be used in your own mods if you so desire. So it also counts as a bit of a mod's resource, and indeed I believe you'll find some of these tree ints in Morrowind Rebirth. And if you want some more unique encounters on Solstheim, or need another unique creature for your own mods, you might want to take a look at this one. This week's new Meshes and Textures mod of the week is Bear Armor Replacer by Simkey. And now yes, we did just showcase this mod quite recently. It was our mod of the month for June 2017, but it fits perfectly with today's Solstheim theme, and it's such a cool looking replacer, I thought we'd show it off again today. And in case you missed our last showcase, this is a complete model and texture replacer for the rather iconic and notable Bear Armor Solstheim, giving this armor a complete new look that better fits in with the graphical capabilities of 2017, and really just gives this armor a nice new shine. Not literally, of course, it's a fur-based armor. It doesn't actually shine, but it does have tufts of fur that you'll notice here and there. That makes this armor feel a bit more realistic and also quite comfy. Imagine snuggling up in some of that warm bear fur during the constant snowstorms of Solstheim. This is exactly the sort of armor you need to survive the colder climates of Solstheim's chilly north. There are still, I believe, a few minor translation issues with this mod using the English version, where some of the armor pieces are still listed in Russian, but that's not really a big issue. And overall, this is just a fantastic replacer, and as evidenced by the fact we've showcased it twice now, I'd really highly recommend you go check it out for yourself. Next up, we have our Mars Resource mod of the week, and this time around we have Winterhold style buildings by Rubberman. And really, this is a very small modest resource containing just 2 new models for a sort of Skyrim style winter cottage, along with a detachable porch. And they're fairly basic models really, with slightly low resolution textures, but they're nice looking all the same. They fit in well on Solstheim, though they don't have an interior component, so it's just the exterior models here. That said, they're about the right shape and size so you could just use one of the Skyle Village Nordic House interiors for them. And all in all, this might be a handy resource if you just want a bit more variety for that Nordic town you're working on, or a unique looking house mod. For our underrated mod of the week this week, we have Fort Frostmoth Docks Enhanced by Midget Alien. And now this is a slight enhancement to the docks of Fort Frostmoth, as you might expect from the mod name here, including a couple of shipping cranes, a new trading outpost, and an old decaying boathouse for some reason. There's a little bit of additional clutter of crates and barrels around the docks here, but otherwise this is a fairly lightweight expansion to Fort Frostmoth, though it will still conflict with most other mods touching on Fort Frostmoth here, just due to where the trading outpost is. But anyway, going inside the trading outpost here, you'll find a couple of merchants selling various wares within, including a general trader and an enchanter on the upper level. They don't have much in way of bartering gold, only about 200 gold each, but they do provide more services than you could previously find at Fort Frostmoth, and in particular, enchanters are quite rare on the island, so just having one around that you can easily access right off the boat is a rather nice convenience feature. And if you're looking for a slight dock enhancement with a few additional services, you might want to give this mod a try. This week's Blast from the Past mod of the week is Felsad Revamped by Lochnarius. And I know that's not exactly how you pronounce Felsad, but I honestly had no idea. So anyway, just moving on. Now this mod is really a sort of mini compilation mod of some of Lochnarius' other mods for Solstheim, namely his Fortified Thirsk and Forested Skull Village mods, with a few other landscape additions added in. And in a way, it's sort of like the Tomb of the Snow Prince overhaul, only much smaller, covering only the northeastern part of Solstheim, and with far less mod conflicts, while, still making the lands around Skull Village and Thirsk rather scenic in appearance. And we're going to do a flyby of some of these overhauled areas, starting with Thirsk, which is now fortified with a wooden palisade going around the entire mead hall, as well as armed guards that are manning the palisades here, an important addition given the hostile nature of the Solstheim wilderness. And a couple of small outbuildings and storage sheds have also been added as well in the back here, giving Thirsk a bit more of a settlement appearance rather than just an isolated mead hall in the middle of nowhere. And one of the really unique and certainly more epic looking additions here though is a set of new cliffs, dense forests and waterfalls found along the northern edge of Lake Fjording. And yes, I know, again, I screwed up that pronunciation. Nordic Woods really just sort of messing up a bit. But anyway, in Vanilla Solstheim, this is a rather flat and unremarkable area. But now you have these striking steep cliffs, slush waterfalls, including a lot of mist from the cascading water splashing down into the river below. And of course, some really quite thick forests to get lost in, should you head towards Skull Village. And if you climb up the cliff face here, you'll find just a really scenic little stream that flows through the woodlands here, going back deep into the forest. And this is just one of the more beautiful areas to be found in this mod, though also one of the more FPS heavy locations as well. You'll notice a bit of an FPS drop here. But moving on, we're going to spend just a bit of time exploring these new forests around Skull Village, and these woodlands are actually, pretty thick. A marked departure from Vanilla Solstheim, which had few, if any, trees up this far north. Presumably that was due to the extreme cold at such a northern latitude, but personally I always just found it a bit dull. Something this thick forest certainly helps to remedy just a bit, adding an extra layer of atmosphere and a sense of isolation to this remote Nordic outpost. Now this is really just a nice landscape overhaul, though it is perhaps made a bit obsolete by the Solstheim Tomb of the Snow Prince overhaul from a few years ago. But if you're looking for something that's a bit more lightweight, that's also compatible with most other Solstheim mods out there, I'd certainly recommend giving it a try. Finally, we have our bonus file of the week, and this week we have Snow Prince Armor Redux by St. Gerb. And this is one of a few armor replacers out there for the unique armor set found in the Tomb of the Snow Prince. And by that, I mean the actual Tomb of the Snow Prince, not the Solstheim overhaul, obviously. Originally, in Vanilla Morrowind, this armor set was just called Ancient Steel Armor, and was just a bland copy of the regular old steel armor, which is why there's a lot of mods out there that try and improve on the appearance a little bit, and this is one of the more popular ones out there. The new armor style here still has a bit of that steel armor look, but it's uniquely distinct, with a bit of fur incorporated into the design to deal with the colder climate of Solstheim. There's also a small little cape and belt included with it, and overall it's a rather nice looking armor set, and a nice addition if you want a more unique set of Snow Prince armor. And that wraps up this episode of my online showcases, and as always you'll find download links down in the video description below. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.